Welcome back to Gold Derby. We are the day after the 2023 Emmys in 2024. It was delayed due to the strikes, but we have finally found out who the winners are. And you know what? If you watch the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice, it kind of felt like a repeat. But let's talk about the show. Let's talk about the winners. I'm Marcus James Dixon. I'm here with Ray Richmond, Daniel Montgomery, and Denton Davidson. Let's start with something positive. What was everybody's favorite part of the ceremony itself? Anthony Anderson hosted for the first time. We had some great presenters, some great reunions. Ray, let's have you go first.
I thought it was actually as much as I was able to pay attention backstage because there's all the winners are coming back there and giving their and answering questions from the media, but it seemed like a great show, really smooth. Anthony Anderson seemed like he was very self-assured and charming. I loved the way they interwove all of the different legendary, iconic moments in series history through the ceremony. My wife too, who usually hates award shows, and she only watched them usually at gunpoint, watched it herself on her own without my coaxing, and just thought, this is just so charming. This is wonderful. And it really was. I think they did a great job of holding it together, with the sometimes exception of Anthony Anderson's mother. We could have used a little less of his mother. I never thought I would be praying for playoff music, but I was hoping for a little bit more music and a little less mom. But other than that, I thought it was a terrific show.
Daniel?
I really liked the way they did cast reunions for presenters. And even when they weren't reunions, it was, at the very least, someone from a classic show like John Hamm coming out from Mad Men. So I think more award shows should do that just as a matter of course, instead of waiting for like a big anniversary, because too often at award shows you get presenter combinations that they just have nothing to do with each other, and the banter is really awkward. In this case, they knew each other, they worked together, they had history with each other, if not the Emmys, as It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia cast mentioned that they don't have history with the Emmys, and the Martin cast mentioned they don't have history with the Emmys. So it was really nice to see that. I would like to see more of that shows.
Denton.
I liked Jason Bateman walking out to Little House on the Prairie music. That was fun, and I really did like Christina Applegate and the way she came out, and because she didn't win, we got to see her, and she had a lot of humor, and that was fun to see. And I also liked the reunions. I didn't. I'm like catching up on some of this stuff because I was down on the red carpet with Latasha, and then we were getting back, and then I had to do some work, so I missed a lot of the actual ceremony itself that I need to catch up on. But the cast reunions, I was able to catch quite a few of those, and in particular, I liked that they didn't always have shows that were Emmy dominant, like the Martin cast. I thought was great to pull up there. Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Cheers, of course. So
yeah, I was just going to say, I wanted to reiterate that moment about Christina Applegate that Denton just mentioned, which I thought was one of the great moments for a presenter, maybe in award show history. It's not an acceptance speech, but just the fact that, it was clearly emotional for her, emotional for the room. The fact that she's been battling MS and probably will never work again in a measurable way. This was almost sort of her farewell to Hollywood. It was just incredibly moving.
I loved the Ally McBeal reunion in the bathroom with the Barry White song. It was so good. The American Horror Story reunion was a little strange. We only had Dylan McDermott. I think Connie Britton was supposed to be there, but maybe she was sick. But you literally have Evan Peters in the audience who played Rubber Man. So I'm a little, maybe they asked him and he said no. I don't know. I realized that was his category, but they could have done a different category. But yeah, I agree with everyone. Good presenters, good reunions. It was a really fun show. But now we have to talk about the winners. And I think we're all kind of in agreement that the Emmys of recent years have swept a lot of shows, which means less and less shows win Emmys. So many shows this year went home empty-handed, which is really unfortunate. Ray, what do you think about Succession, The Bear, Beef? They all swept. We had RuPaul win again, John Oliver win again, a lot of repeats.
Yeah, incredibly predictable. You'd wish there were just a little surprise. I had a couple of surprises down, and I was really rooting for, well, Christina Applegate to win for comedy actress, and that ended up being Quinta, which was fairly predictable. Although Quinta seemed surprised. I don't know if that was her acting ability, but boy, she was very emotional and seemed very surprised. I asked her a question about that backstage too, and she was like, "Yeah, I didn't, I just had no idea." And I was hoping for James Marsden to win for a comedy supporting actor, but I guess it was always going to be a bear sweep in comedy, which we didn't necessarily know. I know at least one of us thought Ted Lasso was going to be was
Yeah,
going to have
I
a
did.
big, or a couple of us, oh, or three of us.
Oh,
I guess
I
everyone
only had
except
Ted
for me.
Lasso
That's
winning
right.
two,
That's
but
right.
one of them was best comedy.
I was the only one who said, "Yeah, I know that there's no history for dramatic comedies actually winning for comedy series, but this was the exception." Yeah, and the reason I had stood by that is because I knew that voters were voting season two, and season two of The Bear was even more, even though they were voting for season one, it was season two that was in their head, and that was even more powerful. Not as a comedy, but as a series than season one. A lot of the grumbling backstage was about, this isn't a comedy. Why is it winning all these comedy awards? And I'm like, well, haven't you been paying attention for the last year and a half, everybody? Yes, this is sort of how it is. And, when I asked the cast and crew backstage about that, they were like, well, the labels don't really fit anymore. The lines kind of blur now between comedy and drama, which is only true up to a point. But it's a great series, so why not?
And Daniel, how did our odds do? And then what did you think of the sweeps?
Our odds did incredibly well. I guess I feel like we should celebrate that a little bit. Gold Derby as a prediction site, we predicted 26 out of the 27 winners.
It's pretty great.
At the Emmys. The only one we missed was Best Talk Series, which went to The Daily Show, which was actually fourth in our odds. I ranked it second, which is the closest thing I have to bragging rights from Emmy night.
As soon as Trevor Noah won, I'm like, of course. Like, why did I not see this coming? Obviously, he's just he is they love the Daily Show. It won 10, 11 times. So of course, now that John Oliver's not in that race, Trevor would have won. I'm so stupid for not calling that.
Which is nice to see, him for his final year, especially. We've now seen a bunch of Daily Show alums win, top Emmys. Stephen Colbert won it a couple times for the Colbert Report. Of course, John Oliver last week tonight keeps winning, and Trevor Noah now has one. He had one in like interactive something, before, but this was special. This was Best Talk Series, so I was happy to see that. But yeah, that was the only surprise of the night, but according to our odds. And I am a little over the sweeps. I think it's inevitable given the nature of peak TV, which is that there are so many shows on so many platforms that viewership is splintered in 500 different directions, and so there are only ever at any given time like 5 shows that really hit the zeitgeist and everyone can kind of agree to even watch all of, everyone watch together. And so those are the shows that end up getting the lion's share of nominations, and everything else gets nothing because everything's just so splintered. So I really think they need to reinstate judging panels to, instead of the popular vote system, all the actors vote for all the acting categories, all the directors vote for all the directing categories. We need people focused on a category to really judge it, and really give opportunities to actors who, if they weren't on Succession, Beef, or The Bear, we'd found out didn't really have a chance. It was, actually, Beef is the only one that did lose a couple of categories. It was nominated in supporting, and it did actually lose those categories. It wasn't 100% sweeps.
And
Oh, and
Jennifer
Jennifer
Coolidge won,
Coolidge
and
for
Niecy Nash. Yeah.
yeah, and Quinta Brunson. She should thank her lucky stars that Io Adebri waited a year to promote herself to lead, because I'm pretty sure if she had gone lead for season 1, she would have won that too.
Right.
Yeah, I want panels back, or some sort of kind of jiggering of the system to kind of level the playing field again, because it's too much sweeps. We've seen this year after year now. It's too many sweeps.
Yeah, and Denton chime in here.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see Quinta win, at least to get off the bear for a category while we could. She became the first Black winner of Best Comedy Actress in over 40 years, since Isabel Sanford. So that was a historic moment. That could have been Io's probably.
She'll get it next year.
Yeah, I mean, the sweeps were boring. I was one of the people that, I thought the Emmys would give a goodbye hug to Ted Lasso. Instead, they gave it a goodbye kick to the shins. I mean, what was interesting, like, the reason I didn't switch also is because they got the most nominations, and Sam Richardson won last week at the Creative Arts. We didn't think he was going to win. So I was like, okay, well, they still like Ted Lasso. But it didn't happen. I think we found out that the Creative Arts just really have nothing to say about how the actual telecast is going to go. Because The Last of Us didn't do well either. That's why I kept Pedro Pascal. After Storm Reid won, I was like, okay, they're into this show. But no, it was Kieran and Succession all the way down. So
It is so weird how the creative arts every year seem to go one way, and then the primetime ceremony goes another way.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned The Last of Us. After that sweep last week, it won 8. I switched to directing for The Last of Us. I'm like, well, it's gonna win something. Pedro, I had Pedro until this yesterday morning when I switched to Kieran. Thank God I switched to Kieran. But it's the Sam Richardson thing convinced a lot of people, like, oh, they still do love Ted Lasso, and clearly they didn't.
And
Yeah.
what I want to know is it's so weird that we can get these 6th place in our odds kind of shocking winners at Creative Arts, and this has happened a couple times. Where we get really surprising winners at Creative Arts. I'm thinking Courtney B. Vance for Lovecraft Country. Like we get these out of left field, which is nice sometimes because it shows that voters are maybe not sort of falling in line. But then at the main telecast, we get the same sweeps over and over again. It's sort of by rote almost. I don't know what's the difference between voters in the creative arts categories versus the voters in the primetime telecast categories.
You wish that it wasn't, when voters are looking at their ballot, that they don't just go, okay, comedy, bear, where it's just by rote, because they don't want to have to think too hard. Same with Succession. Oh, a limited series, okay, beef, as if it can't be split in any other direction. They have to, they like one show, they have to go straight down the line, and they don't. The one thing on the upside I would like to see, which I know Anthony Anderson also pointed out, was it was nice to see so many African-American performers winning, especially on Martin Luther King Day. There was a certain, justice to that. And seemed like the only person who was white that won was named White.
And he was wearing white.
And he was wearing white. Exactly. There was one white man and the rest not so much. But it was just so predictable. The fact that it was they were able to make such an entertaining ceremony out of something utterly predictable was to their credit.
I wish
one of the other things I wanted to mention about the sweeps is beef. Like Niecy Nash, I could see because she was predicted in our odds, and Dahmer was nominated for best limited series. But Paul Walter Hauser, who also was leading in our odds, so it wasn't a surprise. I mean, we all predicted him to win. But if I had seen all the other winners, I would have definitely switched to like Young Mazzino or something, because Blackbird was not nominated for limited series, and this show came out like 17 years ago, it feels like. I mean, this has to be probably the longest running show that it took from being released to him getting his Emmy.
Yeah, I think JFK was president when it came out.
Yeah, so I mean, Paul Walter Hauser really wasn't a surprise, but the way that the evening transpired, it is sort of surprising that he won for Blackbird, which makes me wonder, like, did they just know that he won everything else and check his name because
Yeah,
it
because
seemed like they lost it.
he won the Globe last year and the Critics' Choice last year, and Niecy won Critics' Choice, right? But not the Globe. I think Jennifer Coolidge won that. It's hard because we had the Globes and the Critics' Choice a week ago, so I'm trying to remember what won a year ago. But back to the sweeps.
Paul Walter Hauser. I just want to say Paul Walter Hauser used that time to, compose that slam poetry acceptance speech.
I wish you would have memorized it though.
That was one of the better speeches, and we always hate when
fun.
people read off of something, but if you're gonna read off of something, make it good like that. Make it, poetry. I wanted to mention back, we were talking about the sweeps. Do you think they should put on the ballots as the voter is voting how many times it's won? Like, okay, I'm voting for Succession. This has already won twice. Do I really want to give it a third? Whereas Better Call Saul, 53 nominations, 0 wins. Maybe these things should be on the ballot so the voter knows, oh yeah, I voted for that last year. That's right. Let me do something else.
That would be good.
I don't think they care.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't know
they
if it
just
would
do
help.
what they do.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
think the voters would see it and go, well, I've only seen Succession of these shows, so I'm only voting for Succession.
Yeah. I think they might care a little bit. I mean, I think they want to, although if there was any sentiment in their heart, Christina Applegate would have won. I'm still surprised. I kept picking her to win things, and she just kept not winning. Even though Quinta Brunson herself was either during her acceptance speech or backstage said, "Oh my God, Christina Applegate's so good, so great on Dead to Me." Yeah, you would like to see the wealth spread a little,
Yeah.
but as long as I've been covering Emmys, and it's been much, in some cases, possibly almost as long as some of you have been alive, there's always been the charge that they just keep rewarding the same thing over and over, and sweeps are part of that.
Well, next year, the bear will dominate again next year, but at
No
least
question.
Succession will be gone. Obviously there will be
Beef
new.
will be gone.
Yeah.
Unless
The
there's
bear-
some new shiny object in comedy that we haven't seen yet.
With the IO going lead and Abby Elliott being strong and supporting, I mean, the bear could actually sweep completely next year. Who wants to talk about Elton John? He had a big historic night.
Yeah, I mean, who's more deserving of getting an EGOT? I feel like we've seen so many EGOTs happening in recent years that we're a little numb to it. But I think if anyone deserves to be in that club, it's Elton John and the career that he's had, and what a way to go out on
He should have been there though.
Yeah. Did they say where he
Yeah,
was?
that would have been nice.
I think he had a knee
He was home
operation.
in London.
He had a knee operation.
Oh, that's right.
I'm
Yeah,
glad that
I think
the person that accepted that trophy, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, but he mentioned the EGOT, which I was really proud about. And even Amy and Tina, in presenting the category, they made an EGOT joke as well. So they knew what they were doing.
I'm starting to think, and people say, oh, I don't do it for the awards. Nobody does it for the awards. I think as more attention has gone to EGOT, people can see their stats. If you don't have any of them, I don't think you do like Tracy Jordan on 30 Rock and try to win all 4. But if you win a couple, I can see you going oh, maybe I should produce that Broadway show, or, maybe I should write a song for TV. I think people are more conscious of it, and they look at it and they're like, let me take a shot at this. I wonder if Jessica Chastain was looking at because she was on Broadway recently and she did the George and Tammy, so she had the Oscar. So she's like, let me shoot my shot.
I mean, at this point, it can be as little as let me read that book and have it recorded, and get a Grammy. It's like that's one of the ones I don't like as much as he got for best audible for reading
Isn't that what
I mean,
Meryl Streep?
spoken word.
Meryl Streep
I
gets
mean,
that Grammy
Viola Davis got her EGOT but at least it was, I mean, at least it was a book she wrote and it was her autobiography. It wasn't like she just, did a voiceover.
I'm
Hmm.
going to credit Gold Derby for EGOT awareness, and specifically Chris Beecham, our own Chris Beecham, for the awareness that maybe throughout Hollywood EGOT's now.
Yeah. I mean, Chris B, if he knows anything more than anyone, it's the In Memoriam segment. He was
Yeah.
messaging us the other night, I think. So because the awards
Any
were
any grumbling
extended.
about who got left out?
Well, it was so extended. I don't know if there were specific stars that he had mentioned because we had a quick conversation, but I think there was about 20 to 25 people that could have been added because of how long it's been since the last Emmys.
The one that I heard that people were appalled about being left out was Jerry Springer,
Mm.
which to my mind seems intentional. That the lack of respect extends even post-mortem for him.
Speaking of lack of respect, the one thing I want to say about the In Memoriam segment is they've really got to tell the audience up front, don't applaud during the In Memoriam segment. We don't need this kind of gross popularity contest for the dead. Like, like someone gets this round of applause. It's like, oh, we know who that is. We love their work. And then they put like a writer who is not necessarily as famous and they get nothing. And it's just like, this is not appropriate for
Right.
that.
I remember there was like 3 or 4 in a row where there was no clapping, and then Angela Lansbury pops up and it's like standing ovation. It is a little awkward. Are they just applauding for the best death? I don't.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's
the biggest dead person.
I mean, they're not there to receive the applause, so it is
Yeah.
very kind of weird.
And if they were awarding best death, they probably would have given that to Succession too anyway. So.
So we had RuPaul's Drag Race win Emmy #5 for Best Series. It has overtaken The Voice. They were tied at 4. Remember last year RuPaul lost to Lizzo in a huge shocker. So I was thinking maybe he'll lose again, and I was predicting Survivor. That was mostly a hope prediction, but RuPaul wins #5, and I think it's 8 on the host side for RuPaul. I honestly
and RuPaul accepted too. It was there to accept, right?
Yes.
Did not make it backstage to the media. Neither did Jennifer Coolidge, which I was shocked by. Has she ever met a camera she didn't like? I don't know. I kept expecting her.
We mentioned Anthony Anderson's mother earlier, and I think it was Daniel who mentioned in our Slack channel that, it was a great idea on paper, but once Jennifer Coolidge got up there and the mother was interrupting her and screaming and yelling at her, it's kind of like, okay, did you not try this out beforehand? Because it's totally inappropriate.
It was an extended joke that just kept going.
So mean. Like I think she did that to Jennifer Coolidge, and I think they realized in the moment, like
immediately
that did not come off well. Let's not do that. So
Right.
there were a couple more moments where she lifted the wrap up sign, but she wasn't like interrupting. So I'm glad
somebody got to her during a commercial break.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was not coming off well, and I felt bad for Jennifer Coolidge. She was played off last year, and this time she has someone from the audience literally basically telling her to shut up. And it's
of course, it was being played off last year actually increased her fame and her renown.
I will say that being on the carpet that you see all these celebrities coming in and sometimes there's like little rumblings and all the celebs are like, oh, hi, and hugging each other and having their little reunions. But there was a roar at some point and it's like, oh, so like who's here? And it was the drag queens coming in, and all the celebrities just claiming. So the love for RuPaul's Drag Race is real, and they love those drag queens, and I don't see that show losing anytime soon, unless I don't know what would have to come along to beat that.
Squid Game has come along, so this race next year will be exciting. Squid Game: The Challenge versus RuPaul's Drag Race. That'll be one to watch. Any other winners we haven't mentioned? Matthew McFadden, Karen Culkin, Sarah Snook.
It's so predictable.
I know.
Yeah, everything straight down the line is
It's it's
we saw
We did
predictable,
get
but
some
I'm
history from Ali Wong, the first Asian actress to win as a lead. So yeah, that was, and of course, Beef winning across the board had Asian representation on stage, which was nice to see, as well as all of the got a lot of black.
They were trying to catch up to Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Mhm.
Keeping that going.
And as much as Kieran and Sarah were predictable, I mean, these are their first Emmy Awards. They finally won after years of fans, clamoring for this to happen. And all they had to do was get promoted from supporting the lead. That was the trick. They pulled it off.
Yeah.
Poor Game of Thrones, Kit Harington and Amelia Clark. It's like, we tried that, it didn't work.
Right. All right. Well, any final thoughts, anyone? I'm kind of excited for next year's Emmys because drama
It's actually this year's Emmys.
this year's Emmys. Drama series seems wide open. No Succession. It's gonna be, I mean, maybe The Crown will win again, but I'm hoping something new comes
I
up.
think something's going to come along.
Isn't
And
it
something
weird
could
that,
come along to really challenge the bear too.
like, we're gonna start talking about the next Emmys in I mean, our interviews for Emmy contenders are coming up in just a couple months. I mean, it's
Yeah.
already time to talk about the next set of Emmy nominees.
And
And what's gonna make
some of these categories were only Succession versus The White Lotus. So we will have 100% fresh nominees in many categories, which I'm excited about.
And what's going to make it really interesting and exciting is just the spring of television. I'm excited for, because the strikes left such a hole in the summer and fall television season, that there hasn't really been a new drama to break out, a new comedy to break out in that kind of way. That would seem like, oh, that's clearly going to the Emmys next year. So whatever is popping up this spring is going to be really exciting, unless they just decide to, default back to The Crown.
Yeah, the voters are gonna look at the ballot and be like, "What are these shows?" I've never...
But they'll have to vote for something, and it will be something different.
Well,
Thank
thank you
God.
everyone for watching. Please go to goldderby.com and make your predictions for the Oscars, the BAFTAs, the Grammys, the Directors Guild, the Art Directors Guild, the Makeup and Hairstylists, the Visual Effects Society, the Costume Designers Guild, the SAG Awards, the Producers Guild, the Independent Spirit Awards, the Cinema Audio Society, and the Cinematographers Awards. Lots and lots of predictions to be made. We'll see
I hope you
you.
were reading those and hadn't memorized them, or I'd be worrying about
I'll never reveal. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching.